There is one line of income inside Apple that costs them nothing to produce. No factory, no chip, no engineer, and it's worth roughly 1/7 of everything Apple earns. Apple sold $416 billion of stuff last year. But the part of Apple that actually prints money isn't the phone in your hand. It runs at a 75% margin, and it's growing 3 times faster than the hardware. So today, what Apple actually sells, because it stopped being devices a while ago. And at the end, I'll show you that one line, the $20 billion a year Apple gets paid for a setting. Not a product, a setting, on the phone you already bought. Let's start with the numbers Apple publishes itself. Year ending September 2025, $416 billion of revenue, up 6%. iPhone alone, $209 billion. Mac, 34. Watches, headphones, and everything else, 37. That is a staggering amount of physical hardware. Glass, aluminum, silicon, shipped to every country on Earth. And then there's a category Apple calls services. $109 billion. Smaller, boring name. Nobody queues overnight for it. It grew 13.5% while the iPhone grew 4%. And when you look at what each side actually keeps, the whole company flips upside down. So hold this question. Which half of Apple is the business, and which half is the marketing? Apple reports its gross margin separately for the two halves, so we don't have to guess. Hardware. Every iPhone, iPad, Mac, watch. 36.8%. That's genuinely excellent for physical manufacturing. Most electronics companies would take that and retire. Now services, 75%. More than double. And think about what that number means in practice. For every dollar of gross profit Apple squeezes out of hardware, it has to design, build, ship, and sell about $2.70 of physical product. For every dollar of profit from services, it needs about $1.30 of revenue, and no factory, no shipping container, no warranty repair, no supply chain. It's the difference between running a foundry and collecting rent. And here's the trend line. Apple's overall margin went from just under 40% in 2017 to 46.9% today. That climb isn't because phones got more expensive. It's because the mix shifted. So let's do the arithmetic, because this is the sentence the whole video is built on. Products. About $307 billion in revenue, at 36.8%, gives roughly $113 billion of gross profit. Services. $109 billion in revenue, at 75%, gives about $82 billion. Add them up and you get around $195 billion, which is 47% of $416 billion, exactly what Apple reports. The maths checks out. Now look at the share. Services is 26% of what Apple sells, and 42% of what Apple keeps. Nearly half the gross profit of the largest hardware company on the planet comes from things that have no weight, no shipping cost, and no factory. And that share goes up every single year. So what's in the box? App Store, iCloud storage, the 5 gigabytes that fill up 2 weeks after you buy the phone. Apple Music, Apple TV, Apple Care, advertising, payment services, licensing. Look at what those have in common. Every one of them is recurring, digital, and has essentially no cost per extra customer. When one more person subscribes to iCloud, Apple doesn't build anything. There's no unit, there's no shipping, there's no returns department. That's where 75% comes from, not from cleverness, but from the absence of physical stuff. And it explains a decade of Apple's behavior that used to look strange. Why the base storage stays small. Why everything is a subscription now. Why the device you own keeps quietly asking you for a few more dollars a month. None of that is about hardware. All of it is about the second half of the receipt, which brings us to the actual structure. And this is the bit that reframes everything. Apple is not selling you a phone and then, separately, some subscriptions. The phone is the entry point to the subscriptions. Think of a toll booth. The booth is expensive to build. It's beautiful. It's engineered to a standard nobody else matches. And it isn't where the money is made. The money is made by everybody who drives through, every day, for the next 5 years. Once you're inside, your photos are there. Your messages are there. Your purchases are there. Your watch only talks to that phone. Switching isn't a purchase decision anymore. It's a moving day. And that is precisely why Apple can charge what it charges for the hardware and still not need the hardware to be where the profit lives. The phone doesn't have to be the toll. It has to be the booth. So, the line I promised you at the start. Open Safari on an iPhone, type something into the search bar, and it goes to Google. That's the default. Google pays Apple for it. Not for a product, not for a license to build something, for being the pre-selected option that most people never change. And the last figure that became public, which came out in the US court case involving Google, was around $20 billion for a single year. Apple doesn't disclose it. It came out in court. Now put that against Apple's operating profit for last year, $133 billion. That one arrangement is worth roughly 15% of everything Apple earns. And here's the part that should stop you. What did Apple have to build for it? Nothing. No factory, no chip, no engineer, no warranty. It is a default setting, and it is arguably the single most profitable product line in the history of consumer technology, because it has no cost at all. For completeness, and I'm only stating what happened, a U.S. district court examined those payments in 2025 and ruled they can continue, but not exclusively, with default arrangements limited to 12 months. The Justice Department appealed. That's the status. What matters for us is simpler. The most valuable thing Apple sells isn't in the shop. And now the honest part. Because I'm not here to tell you you've been robbed. You haven't. The phone works. The services work. Nobody's been cheated. The point isn't that value went missing. It's where the profit sits. And almost nobody guesses right. So, 3 things to take away. 1. When you buy a device, you're not making a one-off purchase. You're picking a landlord for the next 5 years. Price the storage, the subscriptions, and the accessories before you buy, not after. That's the real number. 2. The small recurring charge is the entire business model of modern technology. A few dollars a month feels like nothing and is designed to feel like nothing. Add yours up once a year. Most people are wrong by a factor of 2. 3. The general lesson, and it's the same one from every video in this series. When a company gives something away or makes it the default, follow the money to whoever's paying for that default. Somebody always is. On your phone, it's about $20 billion a year, and you were never told. $416 billion of hardware. 75% margins on things that weigh nothing. And $20 billion a year for a setting you've never touched. Next video. The most famous drink on earth. Made by a company that doesn't make it. Subscribe so you catch it. And tell me in the comments, how much do you actually pay per month in subscriptions? Add it up. Drop the number. I read every